Hey guys, today I want to share with you a phrase that I came up with several years ago. Here we go. When life deals you a bad hand, claim that threes and fives are wild and then act like you're deaf. Let me say that again. When life deals you a bad hand, claim that threes and fives are wild and then act like you're deaf. Now, that meant something really big to me back in 2012. Between 2012 and 2014 was a major suck time in my life. Prior to that, from 2006 to 2012, I was on top of the world. Had a fantastic job, leading a great company, super people. Loved my job, made a good living, had a big custom home, and at that time, 2012, all three of my daughters were in college at the same time. So yeah, I needed that job. I needed that big job because I had this big house and I had three girls in college. Probably made some stupid decisions along the way, but that was a snapshot of where I was. And then the bottom dropped out. I lost that job and I found myself with zero income, big house, big mortgage, three girls in college. And I went through 16 months of hell. Every day was worse than the one before. It was a spiraling financial disaster for my family. I've spoke about this before on a couple of other videos and how I made it through that with praying, trusting, and obeying that God was going to be there. So those were my big three: pray, trust, and obey through that time. But I was thinking as I was talking to friends, it's like, man, you got dealt a bad hand. You hear that often. When you're in a bad spot, you hear people say, man, you just got dealt a bad hand. But I was thinking, okay, what is my version of, oh, life hands you lemonades, make lemonade. So what is my version of that with a bad hand? Bad hand usually means you don't have any good cards. You certainly don't have a deuce, which would be a wild card. You don't have any face cards, jack, king, or queen, and you certainly don't have any aces. You don't have any pairs. You don't have three of a kinds. You got a crap hand of cards. Usually a 3 and a 5 is somewhere in there because they're just meaningless cards. So I told myself, man, when life dealt me a bad hand, I've got a bad hand, but you know what? My threes and my fives are wild. They're powerful because that's what I do have. I'm not going to start from a point of what I don't have or what I didn't get dealt. I'm going to start from a point of what I do have. I got threes and fives, and I'm going to claim that they're wild. And I'm going to claim that they're wild and nobody can do anything about it. So I'm not going to listen to naysayers. So when I say pretend or act like I'm deaf from that point on, after I make that declaration that my threes and my fives are wild, I'm going to play like I'm deaf. So the naysayers in my life don't keep coming in and going, oh man, you're just in a bad spot. You just got dealt a bad hand. It's your turn. You just going to have to wait it out. All the stuff that you hear from your circle that's negative, the naysayers in your life. So that's when you play like you're deaf. That's when you play like you can't hear them. So they might be saying, man, threes and fives aren't wild. That's not true. Deuces are wild, and face cards and pairs and threes of a kind, all the stuff that normally is true. Your threes and fives aren't wild. You got to tune them out. So for me, going through that time, 16 months of crap looking for a job, I disciplined myself to still get up at 6 or 6:30 in the morning, take a shower, get my business attire on, sit down at my desk and start looking for a job, start networking, start working through friends, setting up lunches with people to network and figure out what my next step is. Because my threes and my fives were wild. I focused on what I did have and not what I didn't have. So my threes and my fives, I had my health, I had my family, I had my marriage, I still had my home, I had my work ethic, I had my friends, I had networking, I had abilities, I still had that healthy get up and drive to do something. So those were my 3s and 5s, and I capitalized on those. I used what I did have to make the best of a crap situation. The number one thing that I had was God. I had faith. I had faith that God was going to see me through this. He doesn't promise that we're not going to have trials. He doesn't promise that anywhere in the Bible, that you're not going to have trials. But He does promise that He's with you through those trials and He will see you to the other side. He does promise that. So I was hanging on to that. I was hanging on to my 3s and 5s to make sure I could make it through that storm. So I encourage you with that little phrase, when life deals you a bad hand, claim that 3s and 5s are wild and then act like you're deaf. Don't listen to the naysayers. Focus on what you do have. So if you're in a situation where life has dealt you a bad hand, you got a bucket full of lemons, oh, make your lemonade. You got a bad hand. Figure out what your 3s and 5s are. Figure out what you do have. Look at the positive. Look at the things that can make a difference. Look at the things that are going to lift you up, not drag you down. The things that are going to help you climb out of this situation, not the things that are going to shackle you down in the midst of it. Don't turn into a victim. Don't turn into a slob. Don't turn into a do-nothing. You have to take action. God always meets His people halfway. He never just jumps in and does something. He requires you to do stuff in order to meet Him. It's a handshake deal. You have to reach your hand out. You've got to lift your hand up to meet God. You've got to open your voice to get to God's ear. You got to open your ears to hear what He has to say. There's always something we need to do on our part. So figure out what your 3s and 5s are, what you do have, the positive things in your life, the things that you do have control over, the things that you can capitalize on to get you out of this crap. Focus on your relationship and your faith with God and let Him be your partner through this whole thing. And really embrace that statement. Why don't you write it down? Put it on a Post-it note and stick it wherever you look the most. Get several of them and put them in places. Life dealt me a bad hand, but I'm going to claim that 3s and 5s are wild, and then I'm not going to listen to the naysayers. So figure out your way of saying that statement and embracing that idea, and see that that can help you get through any storm. Like I said, we're not promised that we're not going to have trials. We're not promised anywhere of that. Here's another thing. When you're in a trial, look at this in a positive way, in that you're going to be stronger. You're going to learn from it. You're going to grow from it. You're going to get closer to God. You've learned a little bit of humility, which is good. You've learned a little bit of dependency, which is good, dependency on God. Sometimes when we get too comfortable, we're too happy, we're too much in God's favor, or just the favor of life, we tend to put God in a closet or on a shelf because you don't really need Him that much. But when you're in a bad spot, where's the first place you go? You go, oh, God, please help me through this. When you're in a good spot, you need to be equally close to God in praise and gratitude, and praying for other people who might be in a bad spot. So never put God on a shelf. Never set your faith on a shelf. Never set that relationship aside. Keep it close to you through the good times and the bad times. So this is a little short punch for you today that I just wanted to give you that idea. When life deals you a bad hand, claim that 3s and 5s are wild and then act like you're deaf. Now you know exactly what that means, and you know how to apply it in your life. I hope that encourages you today. I hope you love stuff like this. Thank you so much for being here and for tuning in. Please share it with your friends. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you next time.